Hello, this is Sondra Oster, Baras, bringing you a few words of Bible from the heart of Biblical Israel. This week's Torah portion is Vayechi, and it is just the last few chapters of the book of Genesis. We complete the book of Genesis today, and with it we complete the story of Joseph and the story of the brothers and the family of Jacob who are now in the land of Egypt. At the very end of the book, of course, Jacob dies. Most of this Torah portion is about the parting words of Jacob, both to Joseph and to Joseph's children and to all of Jacob's children. He gives them blessings, parting words, instructions, and then he dies. And then they have this grand funeral procession taking him from Egypt so that he can be buried in the tomb of the patriarchs in Hebron, and then they return to Egypt. What I'd like to do is focus on the very last verses, the very last story, in essence, in the book of Genesis. They come back from the burial, and the brothers talk amongst themselves, and they're concerned. Now that Jacob is dead, what will prevent Joseph from taking revenge on them for the terrible thing that they did to him all those years earlier in selling him as a slave to Egypt? And therefore, they decide to do something. This is chapter 50, verse 16. And they sent word to Joseph saying, "Your father commanded before his death, saying." Now they're telling a story to Joseph as that there was some kind of a meeting that Jacob had with all the brothers, but without Joseph. And he commanded the brothers, saying as follows, "Please tell Joseph, please forgive the sin of your brothers, and forgive them," and it goes on in different ways, to please forgive the sin of your brothers. And they present this to Joseph as a request of Jacob. Now, one of the questions that comes out immediately as you read this portion was, did this really happen? We have, in the beginnings of this Torah portion, we have a situation where Jacob calls Joseph alone and his sons, and we have a situation where Jacob calls all the brothers. But there is no situation where Jacob just calls the sons without Joseph. There's certainly no mention anywhere that Jacob commanded the brothers to ask forgiveness of Joseph. I will give in further. There is no indication anywhere in the Bible that Jacob knew that the brothers had sold Joseph. Can you imagine what terrible heartbreak this would have been to Jacob if he had known that it was his sons and what they did to his other son, his favorite son, Joseph. And yet, we have here the brothers saying that this is actually what happened. So really, I don't think Scripture enables us to know one way or the other. Did the brothers make up this story in order to beg forgiveness from Joseph, in order to ascertain whether Joseph would forgive them or not? And by adding Jacob's request to this, it just gave it that much more power and authority? Or did this actually happen? My personal opinion is that they made it up. I think that if something like this would have happened, or if there was any indication that Jacob knew what happened to his sons, we would have learned it from a more independent source, not just from what the brothers said. Scripture would have told us independently, or we would have seen a story where Joseph actually figured this out, okay? Or he was told. And I cannot imagine that the brothers had no interest to tell Jacob. And I am sure that Joseph had no interest to tell Jacob because he knew how much this would hurt Jacob, how terribly it would hurt him. And Joseph knew that Jacob did not know at the time that Jacob came down with his family, because in Judah's speech to Joseph, when he was quoting his father, it was very clear that Jacob assumed that Joseph had been devoured by a wild animal, or that something else had happened to him, that he had no indication of what really happened to Joseph. Okay? So that's my personal opinion, but, you can read this any way you like. At the end of the day, of course, Joseph shows amazing magnanimity towards his brothers. And he says, they offer to be slaves before him, to do penance in any way possible, something that they would not have done while Jacob was alive. And I think, by the way, that this also strengthens the idea that Jacob did not know. Because if they had come before, if there had been any weird kind of situation where the brothers would be like slaves to Joseph, or there would be some kind of different kind of relationship there other than equal brothers, Jacob would have, of course, understood and suspected that there was foul play here. So the very fact that they come and say this to him only after Jacob's dead, in my opinion, strengthens my interpretation that this never happened, that Jacob never knew what had happened to Joseph. But in any case, what does Joseph say? He says, "Do not fear. Can I replace God?" Now, it's very interesting because these words are the exact same words, "Can I replace God?" that Jacob says to Rachel when he is angry at her. For she goes to Rachel many chapters earlier, when Rachel goes to Jacob saying, "Bring me children or I will be dead." And he says, what do you want from me? And can I replace God? I'm not the person. God is responsible for whether or not you can succeed in being pregnant, not me. Okay? And yet Joseph used these very same words here. Now, when he uses these words, okay, what he is basically saying is, I am not a God who metes out punishment or reward. Okay? What I can tell you is when I look at what's happened, and this is what's so amazing about Joseph, he looks at what happens, he says, yes, you had evil intentions towards me, and yet God turned this around for good. Look where we are today. I am second in command of Egypt. I have, because of what God has blessed me with, I was able to make sure you had food, and we are now sitting here in the land of Goshen, and you are all well fed and everything is good. And he, of course, promised to continue to support them for the rest of their lives. And that's a lovely ending. And I think it shows such greatness in Joseph, that his recognition of God and how God acts amongst us. We all make decisions and we are responsible for our decisions. However, at the end of the day, Joseph sits back and looks and says, you know what? You made a terrible mistake. But at the end of the day, God made it turn out okay. He blessed us. And he is leaving this in God's hand. And there's no spirit of retribution or jealousy on his part or on the part of the brothers at this point. I do find it very interesting, though, that he uses those same words. And it is the Midrash who has pointed out the connection between those words and others as well. And there are a number of different interpretations, but I would just like to bring an interpretation that I saw basically from a professor at Hebrew University, which I think says it so well, that by using these same words, the earlier words indicated a very disrupted family, a family where Jacob preferred Rachel, and so God gave Leah more children. It reflected a time of great discord in the family of Jacob. And when Joseph here uses these very same words, he's essentially using these same words to come full circle. We are no longer that separated, jealous family. And here in our family, not only are we together, but there's no place for retribution. This is a family that will remain cohesive, remain together, despite whatever terrible things may have happened in our past. We are able to overcome that and come together as a family. And of course, that will lay the foundation for the nation of Israel. Have a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom.
I hope you enjoyed that video, and we'd like to be sure you're getting all of our video content. So just click on the subscribe button below, as well as on the notification bell, and that way you will have easy access to all our material. We look forward to staying in touch with you. God bless you, and have a wonderful day.